just got a little bit of petrol in the old girl. You know what time it is, and they're here filling the tanks up, so you can pretty well bet gas is fixing to go up. There's the guy filling it up, and there's the current pricing, $209. But I got to run right up here to get some parts for the Tahoe, and I'll see you there. Good old AutoZone. I normally just come right here. I have a discount card, so I normally just come here, but there's also a Advance Auto and a couple other places, O'Reilly's and stuff, within a couple miles from here, so it's no big deal. I just come right here because of convenience. A couple of nice Jeeps pulling in. Really nice ones. But I got to go in here and get some brake pads for the Tahoe. We've had that thing for about 3 years now. I went to the mountain several times and I have not put a single set of brakes on that thing. But I've noticed I started hearing a little noise. So whenever you hear a noise with brakes, it's never a good thing. So it's time to make some changes. So let's go in here and get the brakes, and I'll see you in a bit. All right, back in the car. Got me some Duralast Gold for the old Tahoe. The reason I went with gold, I started to go with the premium or premier, whatever it was called. It's a copper-free ceramic. Well, I started to go with that, but I decided not to. I decided to go with the gold. It wouldn't have made that much of a difference, but I just didn't see the need to get the copper-free. I mean, mileage-wise, warranty-wise, it was the same, so I just went with the gold. But I didn't want to go with the cheapest thing they had, because that Tahoe is one heavy beast. I mean, it is heavy. So I don't want to put the cheapest thing on there, and I don't want to put the most expensive. So it's not a performance Tahoe or anything. It's just a standard selectable all-wheel drive Tahoe. So I got the pads, so we'll get these put on before long, and you'll see the next part of this video then. But I'm fixing to cut you off because we're going to take a ride around the block and make another video. So we'll see you when we do the install. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to go ahead and put those brakes on you saw me pick up in the previous video. Duralast Gold. They are ceramic, so let's get to it. I'll describe all the tools you're going to need, and of course the proper procedures and all that, so that you don't get hurt. So let's get to it. Alright, so if you're watching this video, I'm assuming this is the first time you've changed brakes on a Tahoe, much less any other vehicle. So I'm just going to run you through a couple of safety procedures. First thing you want to do, since we're working on the front or the back, it doesn't matter, set the emergency brake, right? And since we're going to be working with the brakes, we're going to be pushing the brake fluid back up into the master cylinder. I'll explain that to you when we get there. We want to pop the hood, because we're going to need to get under there, okay? And then you're going to want to chock the back tires. I don't care what you chock it with. I don't care if you use rocks, bricks, tires, cinder blocks. I don't care what you use, but chock those freaking back tires. What do I mean by chocking tires? I mean taking something and putting on the back tires to prevent the car from rolling backwards, because you're going to be jacking up the front. If you're going to be jacking up the back, you chock the front tires. There you go. Now, let's get this thing up in the air. Now I said let's get this thing up in the air, but I misspoke, because we actually have to take care of something first. And this will make your life so much easier if you do it now, okay? If you look at these tires, there's a cover on it, center cap. And these look like lug nuts. Those are not lug nuts. Those are lug nut covers, just to make it look pretty, right? So all you gotta do is take the appropriate socket, and it's typically the same size as the lug nut itself, but just back that out. You don't have to pull it all the way off, but back it out. And the particular size of these caps is 22 millimeters. As you can see, it doesn't matter what size you use, 1/2 inch, 3/8, doesn't matter, whatever you have handy. But this happens to be a 22. And you can see they're just hand tight. I mean, they're not very tight at all. Just take those out, and the center cover will become loose. You take that off, and there's the actual lug nuts. Set that over to the side, out of the way. and double check to see what size. Look, that's a little bit loose. Let's try a 21. 21. And see, a 21 will not fit it, so it's definitely a 22. Now the reason I told you to hold off before jacking the car up is because we need to break these loose. We're not going to spin them and loosen them by hand or anything like that. All we're going to do is break it loose so that when we get the car up in the air, you don't have to try to break them loose and risk knocking it off the jack stands, or any of that stuff. So let's get that taken care of. All you gotta do is just put it on there and break it loose. Like I said, you're not trying to take it all the way off. You're just trying to use the weight of the vehicle to make this process easier. Now we get the vehicle up in the air. Now, as you can see, I still have the jack under it, but I also have a jack stand under it. And what I have done is I jacked it up, put the jack stand under it, lowered the jack down onto the jack stand, and then stopped the jack from coming down the rest of the way. That way there's 2 points of contact. So we don't want this falling on us, do we? Might hoit. Now, I strongly recommend wearing a pair of gloves, because there's going to be brake dust all over everything. And although brake pads are not the same as they used to be, they had asbestos in them, because asbestos is, it has a real high heat tolerance. That's all they knew. That's all they had back in the day to use. Well, new brakes do not have asbestos in it, most of the cases. Some still do, but with that said, you don't want to run the risk of getting asbestos, any other chemical compound in your skin. So wear some gloves if you have them. If not, once you get done, be sure to immediately wash your hands. And secondly, it helps keep everything clean if you happen to get in the car or whatever. So just a little tip. Okay, now is a proper time for me to discuss what tools you're going to need. There's not a lot. I mean, I have some tools that you may not have, but you can still get by, is what I'm trying to tell you. Of course, first thing I need is a jack, something to prop the car up with, something to chock the tires with. Then of course you're going to have some wrenches or sockets. 22 to get the covers off, 22 to get the lug nuts off, and a, what size is this? A 19mm for the actual bolts on the brackets. Something to put in, right, to pry this over to get you a little bit of slack so that you can take the brake caliper off. Something to compress the cylinder in there so that you can get it spread all the way apart, so that you put the new brake pads and put them back in. I'll show you that to you. I actually have a specific tool for that. Where is it? This goes in. I'll show you how it works. Really cool tool, but not everybody's going to have this. But you can use a C-clamp. Just put a brake pad on the piston and the C-clamp on the outside, tighten it down, and that'll compress it. But let's get to taking this apart, and I'll show you exactly what's going on. Alright, you have a bolt here and a bolt here. I don't think you can see the bottom, but you got one right there and one right here that you're going to have to loosen up. So all you do is you take your 19mm and a good, you could use a wrench or whatever you want to use. You just go ahead and back that all the way out. If it'll come all the way out, take it all the way out. And then do the bottom one the same way. Now for some reason you have difficulty getting this one out because this wants to rotate out on you. Just stick the top bolt back in it, like I did, right? And then it should come right out. Now some cases you will have to use a screwdriver to give you a little bit of room in the piston and the caliper. If you do, just take a screwdriver, stick it in there and pull on it, wedge it over. That gives you a little bit of slack, and then now your rotor will come in, your caliper will come off. Now you need something to hang it with, and I actually have some hangers that I've had for a while. They're actually plant hooks. You stick one in there and then hang it on a spring or a perch or wherever you can. The main thing is you do not want that dangling. Let go of my glove, because that puts undue stress and everything on your brake lines, and you don't want these to start leaking because they're a pain in the butt. Then you have to bleed the brakes and everything else. So this, all we gotta do is pull the brake pad off, right off the front, off the back. Set that up there because we want to remember where that goes. Inspect your rotors, make sure the rotors look okay, make sure there's no grooves cut in them or anything. And if you've never had them turned, you really don't have much to worry about. But if you've had them turned at any time in its life, now is probably the good time to get new ones. Or if you've had vibrations or anything in your front wheels, your front tires, and you can't seem to locate it, you know, you've had your tires checked and all that, 9 times out of 10 your rotor will be warped because of heavy constant braking or anything along those lines. So now's the time to replace all that. Very inexpensive too. Now you want to check the old brakes against the new brakes. If you can afford it, I strongly recommend getting new brakes with all the new hardware, like these clips, because sometimes these little spring doodads that hold them in the bracket, in the caliper bracket, break off. Sometimes they don't fit right. As you can see, this one's gone on this side, so that's broke, so it's not going to stay up in there just right. Sometimes they just, you know, they're just broke and wore out. So I strongly recommend, if you can afford it, to get one that has all new hardware. Before we open it up, we want to check our brake pads and make certain that they are the same as the new ones. You can compare them back to back to see if they're the same. This is the back side. As you can see, got holes, got the squealer as we call it. So you can just compare them and make sure you have the right brake pads. And if you do, you are at that point good to go. So we know that's the back for this side, and that's the back for the other side. There's one of the fronts for this side. Yep, perfect. So now we have the matching front and back for this side. Now we can open up the parts and get out what we need. Now there shouldn't be any difference in parts and pieces and all that. Just look at it, make sure it matches. Like I said, as you can see, this one is missing that clip. They're the same width, so it doesn't matter. Top and bottom, they're all the same. They're not marked any visually, they're not marked differently. They all look and appear to be the same. So now what we gotta do is take them off and just set them where they go, the way they came off. That way it helps keep you from getting confused, right? Now once you take those off, what you need to do is look at the areas where they actually mount. If you see any rust or corrosion, you want to take a wire brush and clean that the best you can at that time. And when you go to put the new pieces back on, what you want to do is actually put some grease there. You want to put grease anywhere where you have metal to metal contact. So when you put grease there, on the backs, top and bottom, and then we will actually put them on the tips of the pads and on the backs where the pistons actually make contact, and that will help eliminate and help keep you from getting any squealing or anything. Now for this, I'm gonna have to take my trusty gloves off. See how clean my hands are? But whenever you're picking up your brake pads, they sell grease for brake pads, anti-squeal grease, silicone grease. There's all kind of different names, graphite grease. But what it's for is to go on brake parts to prevent the squealing, like I was telling you. So all you want to do is you want to mush it up, make sure none of it's separated, okay? Just push it all back down to the bottom, rip it open. Make sure you have a spot where it'll come out. Get some on your finger, right? And just rub it in all those places where there's going to be contact. That's all you gotta do. And this will make your life a lot easier, because trust me, you don't want to take tires and wheels off any more than you have to. And when you go get this at your local parts store, I recommend buying 2 packs, because a lot of times 1 pack just will not be enough. Depends on how dirty everything, how rusted everything is. Got that. Now I know that this goes in there like such, so I'm going to take some. The brake pads are going to ride right in here, so I'm going to take any that I have left over my finger and just spread in there. Right, anywhere there's going to be metal to metal contact, get a little bit more. You can put it on the other part. Like I said, this will make your life so much excuse me, easier. You will not believe. Go ahead and lube up both of them. And it doesn't take a lot. You don't have to soak it. And if you don't want to get this on your fingers, then by all means use a brush. Anything you have, a little paint brush or anything will work. And then now all you got to do is take it, snap it down in place. Right where the old one come out. And if you get any on your rotor, wipe it off. I always hit mine with brake cleaner, which I do not have at this time. I am currently out. I thought I had some. I should have picked up some at the parts store. And that's the name of the game. If you're not sure when you're there, go ahead and get it. I did not. But I don't need it because I'm going to be getting it off with other stuff anyway. But you can see there's only one way this can go. It can't go like this because this will hit the rotor. It can only go one way and one way only. That goes over the rotor. So it's not complicated. You're not going to install it backwards. Now we wipe our hands back off all nice and clean. Take the front pads, put a little bit of grease on there, right? Put one glove on just to hold the brake pads. You're going to put a little bit of grease on your finger. You're going to rub it on this part where it goes in that holder, that bracket. Do it on both ends, right? Doesn't matter if you start with the front or back, does not matter. Once you get that done, you have to peel off the plastic on the back. Right? Try to keep your fingers off of it if you can. Doesn't really matter, it's just if you can. Orient it the way that the groove in the pad fits the groove on there, right? The round part. Okay. Start it in one of the brackets. Then push and start it in the other one. And that's all you got to do. Look out, dudes. Again, just peel the plastic off. Alright. Set it over to the side so the wind don't blow it away. Litter up the yard. No old lady get mad at you. Slide my glove on real quick. Come around, start one, push down on it while you start the other one. And that's all there is to it. Now we got to take care of that caliper. Alright, the way we're going to take care of this caliper, let me get this up here and show you. If you take one of the old brake pads, put in there, right, like such, and take a C-clamp and put on one side of that pad in the, where it fits in this hole, and the other side on this back part. Okay, then turn it, and now we'll push it in. But I happen to have a special tool for it, and it's made just for it. It's a brake caliper spreader, and all you have to do is, as you can see, it does both of them at one time. Which the brake pad and C-clamp will do it too, but it might be just a little bit uneven. It might be just a little bit uneven, so all you do is you just put this in, make sure you got it running the right way. Whoa. Make sure you got it running the right way. And just put a little bit of tension on that. Now that we've got the pads on there, what we want to do is we want to come up and pop the hood. I'll show you why in just a second. As you can see, this master cylinder is pretty full with fluid. It's right there. So what we want to do is we want to loosen up this top and not really take it off, just leave it loose. And what we're going to do is we're going to compress that brake caliper. And when we do, what's going to happen is the brake fluid is in that line, and then that caliper is going to push back up into here. And typically you can do one side without having an issue, but when you go to do the second side, it will be more fluid than what you have room for. So what I recommend is doing one side, check it, and if it needs to be have some taken out, take it out. You can use a rag, or in my case I'm going to use a turkey baster, syringe, anything that you can put down in there to get some of that fluid out. So let's get this compressed. I hung it back on here just to make it easier for you to see and watch everything. But as you can see, as you turn it, it spreads it apart. After you do it a few times, check your master cylinder, make sure it's not overrunning. It's not. So we just want to continue doing this. Like I said, typically you could do one side without having any issues at all. And when you go to do this, if for some reason it does not want to go in, you have a stuck master cylinder. So at that time, you might as well just stop and seek a mechanic, or if you know how to do it yourself, you can replace the brake caliper, because once it sticks one time, it's just going to continue doing it. And once you get this backed in all the way, or run in all the way to where it can't go anymore, and believe me, you want to go all the way, right? Just leave the pressure on it for a minute, because if you take it off right now, the pressure that's built up in that line and everything from you squeezing and pushing, it will want to force it back out, and you need all the room you can get up here at these pads, because it's going to be tight. But now you can see just how full this is. And if I just go over there and do the other side, it would start overrunning. So I'll get everything started. I'll start on the other side, give it a few pumps, but I will keep a watch on this, because right there is the max line. Right there is the minimum line. I was down just above the minimum. And I can actually use this to judge when I need brakes, because if I don't have any leaks, which I always keep a check on, all I have to do is watch that fluid. When it gets down, I know it's time for brake pads. Just leave that open. We don't want to leave it off, because that just puts air in it. You just want to lay it back down on there. And any air that's pushed out will just escape underneath the gasket and lid. But before I do the other side, when I do the other side, I'll give it, maybe 4 or 5 cranks, and I'll come up here and take any fluid out that I feel like I need to, and all that. I will show you at that point of the process. I won't show you how to do the whole other side, because you're watching do this side. The other side will be exactly the same as this side. The only difference that you'll be waiting to see is this master cylinder. So now that this is set for a few minutes with the pressure on it, let's go ahead and put it on. First thing you want to do is make sure your pads are all the way in, right? Try not to do like I just did and touch that area that had the paper on it, because now it has dirty fingerprints on it. We're going to pull the trigger on that, back it back off, take it out of the way, take it off of the hanger, and now what I want to do is I want to put a little bit of grease on the rim of the pistons, and I'll show you when I get it on my finger. But what I want to do is, see how rusty this is a little bit, but this is another point of contact like I was telling you. So you want to take some, put on your finger, and just run around that, and that will help keep the squeaks from ever coming. And once you get that done like that, you want to take it, make sure your sliders are going in and out properly, put the tab against the slider, pull in on it, slide that on like such, slide it up on your brake pads, take your other finger, grab that slider and push in on it, and now that goes on like such. All you gotta do is just line up the holes, and that is super easy. Right there. There's that one, and there's that one. Now you just run them in and tighten them down. Now I know that somebody is going to complain that I'm not going to torque these down. And I have learned over time that you don't have to really torque them down. I mean, if you're one of those anal guys and you want to be exactly precise, then by all means go ahead, look it up. But I'm not going to put the specifications in because all cars are different. All models are different. So all I'm going to do is tighten this bad boy down where I know it's good and tight. Right. I'm going to snug it, then I'm going to torque it. Because let's face it, when you take it into the shop, they don't torque these bolts. They take their battery operated wrench or their air gun, run them in, and they're done. But what I normally tighten it down as hard as I can by pulling in it, and then I just give it a couple good firm bumps, and that has never failed me. And that's all there is to this side. Now all we got left to do is put the tire on it. And there is a process for setting brake pads that I'm going to show you. So don't just throw your pads on and think you're done. You are not. I'm going to tighten up my lug nuts to the recommended specifications. I'll put them in the video so you'll be able to see what they are, rather than trying to make out what I say just in case audio ain't working or some reason, you know. But when you tighten these down, cross pattern, right? Don't go around. And when you do it, go around a couple times, at least twice. And we're not going to worry about putting the caps back on just yet, because we're going to drive this around the block to set the pads. And that's the process I'm trying to tell you about. We're going to drive it around a real short block to do it, and I'll show you how I do it, how I was taught, and what has always worked. And we're going to come back and we're going to retighten these. You never want to tighten them and just drive off. Tighten them, drive it around the block, set the brake pads, come back, do it again, and then give it about a week, and then come back and do it one more time. Now after you drive it around the block and tighten them the second time, it's okay to go ahead and put the cover on it. But I have learned over time that these things can and will back out on you. I have lost one on my black car there because it got loose and spun off as I was driving down the road. Alright, so what I'm going to do is just snug these up by hand. Alright, long way dummy. Because what's going to happen is that's going to start spinning. Right? So I just want to kind of do it by hand. Give it a quick little bump, like such. That will set the lug nuts in the hole center. They won't be offset, they will be in the center. And then I'm going to lower the car and tighten it to the recommended poundage. Alright, so we want to take the jack stand out. We're going to let the car down till the tire makes contact with the pavement, and then we'll be able to tighten the lug nuts. Now there's enough weight on it. I don't want to put enough weight on it to where the whole weight is sitting on it. I only want enough on it to where I won't be fighting the tire trying to spin as I tighten these down. Now the poundage for this, and I'm not going to show you how to adjust this, the poundage is 140 foot-pounds for a 2007 Tahoe LT. So I'm going to set this up for 140, and that is almost maxed out. This goes to 160. There's 140. Lock down the tab so it won't turn on me, and then we'll go to tighten it. All right, again, we're going to start and go in a crosshatch pattern. You don't want to just go around. Doesn't matter where you start. I did the top one, now we're going to do the bottom one. And we're just going to do this all the way around. Once you get that done, now you can go all the way around in a circle. And all this is doing is verifying that it is set to the proper poundage and that all of them are tight. And this side is done. Now all we do is let the car the rest of the way down. Move everything over to the other side and repeat the process. Now again, you don't need to watch me do the other side. You've already seen how to do this. But stay tuned, because I do want you to see how to set the brake pads to where they function properly. Because I don't want you to just take off out of the yard and have a wreck, because you will if you don't watch the rest of it. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. Alright, I just got through. I got the other side off, everything laid out. The caliper pushed all the way in, and I watched the fluid level as I did it, and it did not overflow. It is just above the maximum level. So I know once I drive this around the block and hit the brake pedal, it's going to take that fluid, push in against the caliper, which then will push out the pistons against the brake pads. So I may actually end up having to add a little bit, but we'll check that after everything's said and done. But I kept an eye on that. I didn't need to do anything to it. If I would have, I would have took my turkey baster, sucked some of the fluid out, discarded of it in a proper container, something sealed that won't leak, and then taken it over to O'Reilly's or Vance Auto, AutoZone, wherever, and they would have took care of it for me. So let me get this other side buttoned up, and I'll show you what you need to do next. All right, there's two final steps, or three. Take your chocks out from underneath your tires, or it will scare the blooming crap out of you, because you'll be like, what happened? Get in the car, release the handbrake, release the handbrake. Now, since you have the brake pads on the car, they're new, the caliper is still pulled in. You now need to push that caliper back out. And the easiest way to do that is crank the car up, push your brake pedal 4 or 5 times until you feel your regular pressure back on the pedal. Right there, that was 4. Feels fine. Now we're going to check the brake fluid. The reason that is so important, you're going to start to take off and you go to hit your brakes and you'll be like, whoa, whoa, I don't have any brakes. And you might hit something, another car, run over a person, a pet, whatever, hit your garage, your house. So always check that first, or do that first. Then you're going to come back and check your brake fluid. As you can see, my brake fluid is now at the maximum level. The brake fluid is good. So now we shut the hood and we're going to drive it around the block. Now the first thing you want to do is not pull out in front of traffic. Just go up the road about 10 or 20 miles an hour, and I'm sorry, my angle you down so you're not in the sun. Get up to about 10 or 20 and then just lightly step on the brakes and come to a stop just like you normally would. Come to a stop. When you get done, speed up. Now you're going to want to do it at the 20. Okay, get down this little side road right here. Now you want to get it up to 20 and do it. And you're not trying to slam on brakes, you're just trying to stop normal. Now you want to get it up to 30. There's 30. Stop as normal. And I'm just going to go ahead and stop. Oh yeah, everything's working perfect. No squeaks, no squeals, no nothing. Now what we want to do, there's 2 more steps, okay? And we'll be done with this. What we want to do is try to get it up to 40. There's 40, and do the same thing. Now the brake shoes are now set in, they are now set, they are now matched to your caliper, your rotors. But now what we want to do is back up about 20 feet or so. And then just hit the brakes kind of firm, not hard, just kind of firm. Go forward, same deal. And you want to do that 2 or 3 times. Now we're going to go back to the house, retighten the lug nuts, and put the covers back on. And that's all there is to it. Come back, like I said, retighten everything, put your covers back on, put all your tools up, you're done. It's not that hard. I can do it in about 45 minutes, and that's without rushing. It just takes longer when I do the video and everything, because I'm trying to think of stuff I really don't want you to forget, and all that stuff. But, if this is your first time, expect an hour to hour and a half. It's not hard. Just the main thing is be extremely safe. And like I said, all it takes is a 21 millimeter, a 19 millimeter. You can use wrenches or whatever you have, and a jack, something to put under it to keep it from falling down, something under the rear tires. And you will need at least a C-clamp. And I'm not talking about a little C-clamp, I'm talking about one that's about 10 to 12 inches. And the reason for that is, like I said, you'll have to take an old pad, put on the pistons, put the hook of the C-clamp on that brake pad, and the other part where you turn, put it up underneath the back side of the caliper, and then just tighten it in, and it'll do the same thing. You don't have to have a specialty $70 tool to do it, because you might not do that many brakes. When I was working at the automotive shop, it saved me a lot of time. And to this day, I'm glad I bought it, because it saves me a lot of time when I go to do my own brakes. Like I said, I can do a set of front brakes or even rear brakes in 30 to 45 minutes. It's not hard at all. But I just want to do this video to show you, number one, that you too can do it, and number two, for the people that have never done it, what all is involved. So now you can use your own decision on whether you want to save $100 to $200 having somebody else do it versus the $40 for the brakes. You do it yourself. It's really, really simple. It's not that hard. Trust me. If I can do it, anybody can do it. But I just want to put this out there for those of you that need it. And I hope to see you in the next video. Get out and enjoy your cars, because it's a beautiful day here. It's about 52. But I'm so glad to be outside doing this rather than stuck inside. And we'll see you in the next video. So until next time, take care.